Well, good morning. How are ya? Good to have you on with us again this morning. And as usual, just wait for a few folks to get on with us here this morning. And we appreciate it. Thank you so much. And Francis Marie, good morning. Brenda, good morning. Rosalinda, Niagara Falls, good morning. The kidneys of Ontario, Niagara Falls. That's so true. Jen, Brahim, Portland, Oregon, Nick from our staff, and Jeanette right behind her from the staff this morning. Mary, Regina, Carrie from Nebraska, Christine, and from North York, good morning. Elaine, Wendy, Markham, good morning. Kevin, is it your birthday? I thought I saw Kevin, or no? Donna, good morning. Jordan, good morning to you. Zian, Len and Judy, Fran, Frosty Orangeville, Linda, Michael, Catherine, Parksville, BC, Fran, Valkaren, Wanda, Virginia, Suzanne, Gary, good morning, Bolton, Frida, and Ginny, Georgie, good morning, Halifax, Nova Scotia, David, Ann from Kingston. It was almost 90 in Portland yesterday, he was saying. Yep, and Kevin says it's his birthday. Happy birthday, Michelin, Susan, Denise, Cincinnati, WKRP, Sue, good morning, Margaret, and Jeanette, Kapuskasey, Freeline, how are you? Alma, a couple of more, having steak for breakfast this morning. Pam, Michelin, good morning, Mara, and Diane from Thunder Bay. Good morning, everyone. We appreciate you guys. Sandy, Judy, and I know there's many out there. Good morning to you. Maureen, how are you? Meta and Veronica. I'm going to say hello to my sisters because they say they put their name up there, but I never see them. Rosemary and Lausanne, my sisters. And they never, their name never comes up. I said, I only say hello to who I see. Yana, bonjour, Rosa, good morning. Here we go. Anne, how are you? I know I missed so many. I'm sorry, guys. Margie from Kansas, Catherine, Springdale, Nova Scotia. Okay, let me bring out this new study. It's not good on high fructose corn syrup. Okay, high fructose corn syrup. New study just came out. It's worse than we thought. It's worse than we thought. High fructose corn syrup. Now remember, I read an article this weekend and it said, we need sugar. Okay? We need sugar. Well, you don't need sugar to survive, but this one researcher was saying, yeah, you need some sugar and your body don't do well without sugar. And I get it. When you're trained like that and you just see, you got 3 macros, okay? So you got carbs, you got protein, and you got fat. And to most people in the nutrition, medicine business, they'll tell you, you need all 3 and you need balance and you need, moderation, and sugar isn't harmful. Look, let me say this for the millionth time. We don't live in the same world as we used to. Okay? You know my expression that I tell my grandchildren. Grandpa had ice cream and cookies as a kid too. And nobody seems to take this into account, how crazy we become on sugar. So, look, we were at, this is scientific fact of history. North Americans in the 1950s consumed on average 25 pounds of sugar a year. 25 pounds on average. In the 70s, when all my 4 children were born, they were consuming, it doubled to 50 pounds in the 70s. With the big time use more of cereals and people getting away in the 70s, starting the fat-free craze, and everything became fat-free from milk to ice cream to whatever. It just compounded the amount of sugar people were consuming. We were at 50 pounds. Now, we are now at a 50 pound, imagine a 50 pound bag of sugar. That's a pretty big bag. 25 pounds is fairly big. A 50 pound bag is, it's really big. Have trouble carrying that. Now we got a dump truck load. We're at almost 200 pounds, 160 to 200 pounds of sugar, and most kids are way beyond that. We live in a different world. Now, something happened that even made it worse. 25 pounds, 50 pounds, and then the advent of the Antichrist, of the Frankenstein of sugars, was created by man. And we all know the answer to that. It was high fructose corn syrup. And they couched it. The food industry is, look, they don't, let me just say it again, they do not care about your health. They care about sales. Because if they cared about your health, they wouldn't make cereal. If they cared about your health, they wouldn't turn oranges into orange juice. They just wouldn't, if they cared about your health. But they care about sales. And the tobacco, this is a fact, by the way. The food industry hired the marketing and science people behind tobacco. They flipped to the food industry. And they were masters at addiction. Masters. They knew how to make addicts in a hurry. They flipped industries. I watched it happen. I've been screaming blue murder ever since. Screaming. Because they went after my children in the 70s. Cereal. Frosted Flakes are great. No, they're not. No, they're not. Fat-free everything. Added sugar to everything, from ketchup to you name it. So what's happened? And then they invented a new sugar. And I've been talking about this for so long that sugar is completely different than, ordinary sugar. It is a terrible, metabolically destructive sugar. It's called high fructose corn syrup. And they couch it behind, when I wrote the book Serial Killers, I actually have a chart there that says, I think it had 99 different names that the food industry is able to use. And it's high fructose corn syrup. Why do they use it? Very addictive, very sweet, and it's cheap. Those are the three reasons. It's inexpensive. It's addictive. That's why they use it. Yeah. And metabolically, it is unbelievable what it does. And that's what this study said. Crazy. Here's the headline. It's worse than we thought. What's worse than we thought? High fructose corn syrup. It's worse than we thought. And there's 5 things that they said in this, 5 things that they said in what it does metabolically to people. Unreal. What it does to our kids, our grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. They're growing up in a different world. Not only environmentally than when I was a kid, but differently in what they're consuming. You hear me talking about it all the time. I go to a mall and I see these people, drinking these fruit drinks, so-called. And young people, I see them at Starbucks and I go, oh, isn't that wonderful? They're at Starbucks. They're listening to Dr. Martin. They're drinking coffee. Not so much. They're drinking all these drinks that got a mountain load of sugar in them. The worst thing to do is to drink sugar and drink high fructose corn syrup. Yikes. 5 things this article said. Okay? Here's what it does. Like alcohol, high fructose corn syrup is like alcohol. So, would you give a beer to a child? Would you give, here's a rye and Coke to a child? Of course you wouldn't. But that's what's happening. Because high fructose corn syrup, now this article doesn't even talk about one of the things it does that I brought to you, I don't know how many programs ago. I'd have to go look. I showed you that high fructose corn syrup, because, and this article says it makes a beeline for the liver, just like alcohol. You drink alcohol and everybody, you don't have to go to medical school to know this. You see, I mean, alcoholics, what do they have trouble with? Their liver. Cirrhosis. Uh-huh. Yeah, people know that. The general public knows that. But high fructose corn syrup does the same thing. And I got to just tell you, on the way to the liver, it rapidly goes to the liver, but it does do damage in the gut because it disrupts the microbiome on the way to the liver, and it's going to the liver rapidly. So it's like a speeding car, that's hitting the guardrails in the gut. It disrupts the microbiome, and we know it feeds yeast. The article didn't talk about that, okay? Fungus, candida. Okay, but I'm not spending time there this morning. I'm just telling you, on the way to the liver, it's driving like a drunk driver, hitting the guardrails in the gut on its way to the liver, and it's going to get to the liver rapidly. What does that do? Well, it starts rapidly the process of fatty liver. Now, non-alcoholic fatty liver, NAFL, okay? NAFL is something, and this is, guys, understand where I come from. This is something that people used to say, hey, doc, you're crazy. What? You're crazy. Because we never going to see, fatty liver in a child. Oh, yeah? I said, I've seen it. I see it. I see it in my practice. It doesn't take long to pack up the Costco parking lot, your liver, even in a child. And fatty liver, my friend, is very, very destructive. It is, the ramifications of fatty liver are unbelievable because, it leads to diabetes. Now, I don't want to get off the what they were saying in this article, okay? Because I sort of promised myself that I would finish this today. Okay, number one, when it hits that liver, high fructose corn syrup starts the process of fatty liver unbelievably fast. Okay? And in the 70s, can I say something? Again, it's the world that's changed. It's the proof in the pudding. I tell people, well, look, we never saw fatty liver in children. Never. They didn't even write about fatty liver. The only thing they wrote about liver is cirrhosis of the liver. You read my medical books in the 70s, cirrhosis of the liver, not non-alcoholic fatty liver. And by the way, I don't know if I said this. Yeah, I think I did. Let's call it fructose fatty liver. Fructose fatty liver, because really we could rename it. Instead of NAFL, we should have FFL. How do you like that? FFL, fructose fatty liver. When someone drinks a soda, it's fructose. And you're thinking fructose, fruit. Nah, this is fructose on steroids, if you catch the drift. So the first thing that happens, it starts packing up the liver, fatty liver. It packs up the Costco parking lot. That ain't good. Because when that fat surrounds the liver, inside the liver and around the liver, the body will do two things. Store fat, store, and you see obesity. I call it diabesity. And triglycerides go up. You know that. Why? Because when that liver gets packed up, the way the body tries to empty it is they get triglycerides. The triglycerides are already stored in the liver, and they send them out into the bloodstream. Dangerous triglycerides. Triglycerides belong in the liver. It's stored energy. But if there's no room in the liver, out triglycerides go, which are really dangerous for heart disease, stroke. Imagine, we're setting our kids up for this. It gets me angry. And nobody talks about it. 2, high fructose corn syrup drives insulin resistance at the cellular level, including when the liver gets that fat in it. Fat cells become very resistant to insulin. You know us. We are always talking about it. Insulin resistance. High circulating insulin. Cells telling the insulin, get out of here. I'm so sick of you. The bad neighbor. That's a pest. That's insulin resistance, my friend, which creates a cascade of problems on its own. Number one thing it does, it creates inflammation in the body, even in children. They don't know it. People think of inflammation as, I'm sore. Yeah, well, maybe. But there's a silent inflammation. That's very destructive to blood vessels, to nerves, to joints. Silent. Okay. What happens? Okay. Fatty liver comes quickly. 2, insulin resistance. 3, okay, increase of uric acid. Uric acid. Now you're thinking gout maybe, and maybe that's true, because gout, the rate of gout has been around as long as man has been around. Okay? But they always blamed purines. And I said, no. The king, they used to call it the king's disease. And, the king was, the king was eating too much meat. Nah, the king was drinking too much beer. The king was drinking too much wine. The king was on alcohol. And the king, today, you know what drives uric acid? is insulin resistance from fructose. That's the number one thing. It ain't purines. They always want to blame meat. Get used to it, because every day you're going to be told in this day and age, stop eating meat. Every day. Red meat, bad. Cereal, good. It's the opposite. Your uric acid levels are going to go through the roof with fructose, especially high fructose corn syrup. Folks, the jury is in on the truth. This is, like I said, the Antichrist of sugars. It is unreal. It increases uric acid level. Now, uric acid doesn't always give you gout. A lot of people can have high levels of uric acid and they don't have any, it's not crystals in their joints. But it doesn't matter if it's high, it's not good, because it's an inflammatory response when it's high. Uric acid is normal. You're always going to make some uric acid, but your kidneys should get rid of it, and it's turned to urate and you pee it out, unless your kidneys are being stressed by high fructose corn syrup. Nothing more destructive than sugar to kidneys. It ain't protein. I saw someone this morning on our private Facebook group. Some nurse said, well, if you don't have sugar, your kidneys are going to shut down. Sorry, it's the opposite. Sugar will shut your kidneys down. If you don't believe me, ask a diabetic who's on dialysis. You know my sayings. I wish I'd invested in dialysis 20 years ago. They're opening dialysis centers. Why is that? Think about it. It's a direct line. Why is it up so high? Why do we see almost half the population have some form of diabetes? It's either pre or diabetic. And remember, blood sugar is a lagging indicator. We always say that. What does that mean? Well, you're not going to be, the last thing that happens is diabetes. It's not the first thing that happens. You got to have insulin resistance. You got to have fatty liver before you become a diabetic. You gotta head that off at the pass before it. Diabetes is the last thing that happens, because your body would rather have fatty liver than have high blood sugar. I know, it sounds crazy, but that's how your body works. It would rather have fatty liver than you be a diabetic. You know, it's almost like, well, we'll deal with the liver after. We don't want you to be a diabetic. Your body's smart. It's unreal, you know. Oh, fearfully and wonderfully made. Because once you're a diabetic, it never ends well unless you do the reset and change that. Because diabetes is food. It's as simple as that. And so is fatty liver. And so is insulin resistance. And so is uric acid. It's a biomarker. We talked about it on our most recent webinar. We talked about it. The importance of uric acid testing. It's a biomarker for insulin resistance. It really is. Okay. Fourthly, High fructose corn syrup. This is in the article. It says it lowers your nitric oxide. What is that? Nitroglycerin. Think of the explosion. Nitric oxide. A little molecule that your body makes to open up your blood vessels like an explosion. Your blood vessels open, which is good. You want your blood vessels to be open, to expand. You want that. But what happens in high fructose corn syrup is very destructive to nitric oxide. It lowers those levels. Now remember about nitroglycerin. Remember that. They still give it for angina, because they want to open up the blood vessels. People that get angina, they take a nitro, and within seconds, it brings more blood supply. But your body makes it. But high fructose corn syrup is very destructive to it. It lowers your levels of nitric oxide, which does a lot of other things too, by the way. And fifthly, oxidation, but especially, now you guys know this, I happen to have an apple here. I cut it just before the program started, And you can see, now for those listening on a podcast, use your imagination. You've all seen it, An apple cut in half. What do you see? After a while, it's exposed to oxygen. The very oxygen that you live by will make sure you rust out eventually. That's a result of sin. Now, look at this apple. If you can see it this morning live. What do you see? It's starting to rust out. Yeah, that's called free radical damage, oxidation. Now, there's two forms of oxidation. There's this form where it rusts you out, and then there is something we call AGE'. Glycated end product. So leave it to medicine to give it a big name. Glycation. What is that? Well, it's where from your skin to your joints to everything. So you can get rusting out, but you can also get glycation. That's a loss of elasticity. In the joints, a loss of lubrication. And that is what we call advanced. There's nothing that will cause, listen, this is what the study says. Nothing that will cause oxidation and glycation, rusting out, and number two, glycation, which is a loss of elasticity and all that, in joints, in your skin, in your eyeballs, everywhere. You lose that elasticity, and that's part of aging, isn't it? It's advanced aging. It is. And this sugar, high fructose corn syrup, is the worst for that. It is. So you see, let me wrap this up. You see how important it is to eliminate sugar? Eliminate it if you can. Okay? We see kids. I used to teach them this when they came into the office and they had all sorts of problems. I'd say, well, you got to learn. Might as well learn it early, and they should be teaching you this in school, but don't hold your breath. Learn to read labels, and don't look for fat, and don't look for calories. Look for how much sugar they've added. My friend, that's nutritional truth. Nutritional truth. And you know what I love about my audience? You guys know it. You know it to be true. And I said this so many times in my practice, I get tired of hearing it myself. It's not moderation, it's elimination. It's not moderation, it's elimination. Okay. I got excited this morning. What's new? Okay. Thousands of you and tens of thousands of you have joined our private Martin Clinic Facebook group. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Okay, we appreciate it. And we thank you for your participation. We love you dearly. Thank you for being part of our community. And, get folks to listen to the Doctors In podcast. You listen to the Doctors In podcast. You can listen to it again and again and again. Sign up on your smartphone. Okay? Podcasts. Somebody asked me yesterday, what do you do? I said, well, I do podcasts, but I don't know exactly what that means. No, I do. Okay? And Friday is what? Question and answer Friday, so send your questions in. Guys, we love you so dearly and we mean it. Talk to you soon.